Welcome to another episode of the InfoTech Growth Partner Podcast, the podcast where the future of IT unfolds, and we dive deep into the pertinent developments in regards to IT and data with leaders and experts in the IT consulting field. My name is Jasper, and today I have the pleasure to have Dorota Gordon with me. Dorota is the founder of Peoplevy, and it's really an honor to have you on the show. Dorota, welcome.
Hi, Jasper. Really nice to be here.
Awesome. Can you give the listeners and the viewers a bit of an introduction to your own background and what you're currently doing?
Sure. So I'm Dorota. I'm known as D, and I work in startup companies such as Archdesk, which is actually how we met. I build impactful people foundations. So I set up the environment for people to thrive, to make sure that people can work at their best. Organizations are often not set up in the right way to enable people to work in the best way possible. So I want to make sure that the leaders are equipped with all the tools and all the support that they need to be able to enable that for their employees. And people can be the biggest advantage of the company. It just takes a lot of conscious work to make sure that this happens and the strategic direction to ensure that they are set up for success. Outside of that, I'm also a coach and a mentor. I coach executives who want to elevate their leadership, and I mentor people who want to get into tech or want to accelerate their careers.
Well, thank you. And yeah, these are very relevant topics that we will dive a little bit deeper into. As I think all people know that are listening here, is that first of all, finding the right talent, the right technical talent in regards to IT is very hard, but then also retaining them in a good way and making sure that they will not leave when they get another offer from a different company that's even higher. So that's really the first topic that I want to dive into together. Can you tell us a little bit about the common mistakes that you see in companies in the hiring process, and what they can do to avoid those mistakes as much as possible?
Sure. So I think the first mistake comes at the very, very start of the process, and is actually not being clear on the purpose of the role that you are hiring for. So there's often a lack of alignment of first what you are looking for in the person and in the role, and second, there is a lack of alignment between the role and the wider purpose. So then that translates into the position not being quite well defined, and then that just sort of feeds into everything else. So you're benchmarking. Obviously, when you don't know where the role sits, it's very hard to establish the level at the position should come at, and then that then translates into not being able to find the right comp, not being able to attract the right candidates. So yeah, it's all very much starts from there. But as you have mentioned, it's hiring and retention is quite difficult, but thankfully there are a lot of strategies, a lot of things that we can put in place to make sure that we hire the right people, and we have the right processes to then retain them. So it's another mistake that quite often happens is companies rely on one source of sourcing for candidates. So they would just go, let's say, outreach, or they would just post an advert somewhere, and then that's it. But they don't consider different sources of mixing them, which means that you might be biased in finding a candidate just from one sort of area, but you're not opening yourself up to different avenues. And then another one that I actually recently talked about on LinkedIn is, how the interviews are actually conducted. So a lot of managers see interviews as this, one-way conversation of, okay, I'm just there to test the candidate and just to see, what sort of experience they have and what they can bring. But actually, it's a two-way conversation. So you need to make sure that the way how the interview is conducted allows for that, and the candidates can also ask the right questions, because ultimately they are looking for the right fit as well. They want to make sure that the organizations that they are going to pick for the next role is the right one for them. So managers quite often forget about it, and then it just ends up being very difficult later on when they want to make an offer and the candidate is not quite ready or not quite bought into what the company does.
Yeah, they're interesting. And there's two things I want to touch upon here. The first one is really that you mentioned that typically a company only has one source for finding candidates, whether it's ads, whether it's through external help. That's also what we see in the businesses that we work with. But then from a new business point of view, most of these businesses are relying on referrals and network, which are similar channels, let's say it like that. And they are not really actively looking for other channels that are maybe a bit more reliable and a bit more scalable as well. And the other thing I want to touch upon is what you mentioned about the two-way conversation. It's not the company interviewing the candidate. It's also the candidate interviewing the company, because they have so much choice. They have so many opportunities. So they should be the ones who are vetting different companies and see where can I fit best, where can I get the responsibilities that I want, where can I grow through the ranks. So in that sense, I think that is really a relevant change that we should see in terms of the hiring process. From that, I want to go a little bit into the retaining part of retaining the right people once you have them on board. How do you make sure that you can retain them? So really my first question for you is, because what most people say is, well, they are just going to another company because of a new offer, because they can earn $500 more every month. But can you give us an insight into some of the other common reasons that these IT people leave a company?
Sure. So there is actually a lot of research being done about this, but to me, and the easiest way to understand it is to break it down into three pillars. So obviously, as you mentioned, compensation is a big one, but it's not just compensation. It's not just a paycheck that you get every single month. It's more than that. So it's the whole offer around comp. So it's the monetary, but also non-monetary benefits that come to that. So that's why it's important to build in regular pay review cycles into your operations, so to make sure that the compensation that you're paying, it's still relevant, it's still on market, and that you remain competitive. And it's also so employees know what to expect, because there is nothing worse than if you think you're doing a great job and you think like, okay, I should get paid more, like my colleagues are getting paid more, and maybe people in different organizations are getting paid more. But then turns out that actually the company's not happy with your performance. So people need to know what to expect and what does it mean to get a pay review and how it's calculated, and why did they get an increase or they didn't get an increase. So that transparency bit comes there quite strongly as well. But another part is the growth. So especially you will know that, but working with the tech environment, it's not stagnant, right? It moves really, really fast. And the people that work in tech, they also want to move fast. They also want to get to work on the newest tech or get involved in more and more things that are going on. So they also want the company to be that place of growth. And when they can see that the company is not really there, or there is no incentive really to innovate or to grow as a company, they know that their role will just remain the same as well. So that's the growth part. But it's not just the growth part in terms of tech, but there is also the growth as personal growth. So if someone has aspirations to become a manager, or if someone has aspirations to move to different departments, as an organization, we need to make sure that we allow them that transition, and we provide opportunities for them to be exposed to different things depending on what their aspirations are, and obviously how that fits within the company. So I think that growth part is quite big, because you quite often hear people as well saying, oh, in this company that I'm moving to, they will provide me with this, and that, and I will get to be this, this, and that. So that's I can definitely see that on a regular basis as well. But the third one is also the alignment. So people will not always agree with the direction that the company is going with every single decision. But if there is a fundamental disagreement where they can see that actually it's become so disconnected to what they stand for and for what they are looking for, then they might start looking elsewhere as well. Because people want to feel connected to the mission. They want to feel connected to what the company is doing and where they're going. So that's why that's quite an important one, to then stay in alignment and explain to people, okay, this is what we'll be doing. This is why we're doing this. Are you on board? And some people will decide that at certain points it's not for them, and that's okay. But ultimately, it's on the thing that we can do as an organization is to speak to them and to be transparent about our reasons for doing certain things, to make sure that alignment is there and they really understand as well where certain decisions are coming from. But actually, it's also worth mentioning that the level of turnover, like a certain level of turnover, is actually healthy. It's normal for organizations to have a small percentage of turnover, because then you still get new people into organization, you get new skills, but also it allows people for growth, because people don't stay with organizations for the lifetime. They're allowed to move on, and that's absolutely fine. And it's on us to provide them those opportunities as well. So yeah, a small level of turnover is actually okay.
Yeah. And I can imagine that as well. Like, with that small percentage of turnover, the people that really want to work for the company and really enjoy what they're doing, and therefore probably also are bringing good results to the company, those will stay.
Yeah.
And again, the people that are only looking at compensation and will leave when they can earn some $100 more every month, maybe it's even better that they leave, to be completely honest. So I think that is definitely a good thing. The next thing I want to dive a little bit deeper into is, the common thing we hear a lot in speaking with, in this case, IT consulting companies, is that they are really trying to balance the amount of people that they employ and therefore the amount of projects that stand against them. They really want to make sure that is, of course, you cannot always have it exactly the same, but they're trying to balance it in a way, and they don't really want to take on 5 new projects if they don't have the right amount of people already in place. But of course, they don't want to hire 5 new consultants if there is no projects against them. Can you maybe share some strategies on how these companies can balance these, the workforce size and the client intake? Because, as I said, that is one of the biggest pain points that we see, and maybe some strategies that they can use, specific practical things that they can do in order to, make sure that balance is there as much as possible.
Sure. So the fundamental thing here is the demand forecasting. So that's something that is normally done in collaboration with finance. Looking at the business strategy, being able to analyze the clients that you'll be working with, looking at different trends, predicting things that might happen in the future, but it's also including the things that you can't predict. So your leaves, your sickness, your other levels of absence, and then you need to establish your critical staffing levels. So something that you under no circumstances you can drop below. And then based on that model, you can then develop a hiring plan. So taking into consideration different things, like market, time to hire, onboarding period. Because again, there is nothing worse than just hiring somebody and going like, yeah, that's it. Like, you are in, you're expected to contribute from day one, and that's true. You expected to contribute, but you also need to onboard them and make sure that they are set up for success. So yeah, it's then quite important to review and act on those insights. So if let's say a couple of months in, you haven't secured the amount of clients that you have, you need to then review your hiring strategy, make sure that you're still on track with everything. Sometimes that's when hiring freeze comes in, or that's sometimes when you decide actually we need to hire more a little bit quicker. But some of the ways in how companies can manipulate that is they can utilize day rate or fractional staff. So they can have people that come in just for a couple of days a week or a couple of days a month, depending on when the help is needed. Another thing is if the business model allows for it, and if you're working on IT projects, you can just have consultants that are assigned to those projects. And that's obviously helps a lot, especially if they already know the business, if they already know how you operate. They can just come in, deliver the project, and then maybe come in for another one a couple of months down the line. So obviously that is quite a good thing for both, because it gives people the flexibility, but it also gives the business flexibility as well to make sure that they can forecast and they basically don't have overheads. So this is not always possible, but also being mindful of being able to space some of the projects out a little bit. So if you have a lot of projects that are happening at the same time, it's going to be very hard to find all the right staff and to do them properly. But yeah, I'm obviously aware that that's not always possible to do. But another thing that is quite often forgotten about is upskilling the right people in the skills that might be needed in the future. So if you can proactively do this in advance, then people will be able to pick up certain things later on once the need arise. So that's why it's important to make sure that you do have a plan to upskill your people, to bring the skills that they might need in the future to be able to pick up certain projects or certain tasks if somebody is off or if someone's not available.
Yeah, and in that sense, it really requires collaboration between your HR, your hiring department, and your new business, your sales and marketing departments to see what is the forecast on our end, what is the forecast on the other end, and how can we make sure to balance that as much as possible. And indeed, it might be that you need to plan some projects more out into the future because you cannot find the right people in 30 days from now. Yeah. What we see in most businesses, even though these are most of the times these are businesses that are involved with data projects themselves, so getting insight into data, decision intelligence, they're not even tracking these types of forecasting themselves internally, which is quite ironical. That's a common thing that we see, and yeah, it is a crucial part, especially if you're a consulting business that is being run by people. The people are your assets. The people are the ones that are doing the project. Of course, you have some technology around it, but you really need the people in order to make money. That they are not really actively looking into this and planning for this for the future. I also want to dive a little bit. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, on what I just mentioned.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There are a lot of companies that don't really have that future thinking approach, and it catches up with them because ultimately, if you can't have the right people to deliver the project, it's going to be very, very difficult to deliver the project well.
Yeah, definitely. And another topic, and we've discussed it briefly already. You mentioned that it's not only the candidate that is trying to sell himself, it should also be the company that is, of course, trying to sell himself. And a lot of candidates, a lot of employees find it very important that they are connected to a mission of a company and aligned with the company values. I want to dive a little bit deeper into something I think you called employer value proposition. How can a employer, a company, put their value proposition out to the market? And maybe what are some key elements that they should consider when creating this value proposition?
Yes, it's employee value proposition, so EVP. The way I see it and the way I explain it to people is it's basically the answer to why would people choose to work for this company over any other one. And it makes us really think about the unique proposition that we can offer to people within the organization and people we're looking to attract. So there are a lot of elements that form EVP, but I see it as the monetary and the non-monetary part. So in the monetary part, you would have everything from things that we have discussed, so comp, bonuses, share options, and other benefits, so your paid leaves, health insurance. And these benefits are quite often discussed with candidates at the offer stage or during the recruitment process. But there is the other part of EVP, which is the non-monetary one. So the culture of the organization, the career prospects, the environment that you build as a company. And these parts are actually less frequently discussed with candidates. And I'm a big advocate to make sure that people know that this is the environment that they will be working in. This is the culture. This is how things happen in this organization, and both of them are equally important. So let's say if a company gives you a great compensation, you're absolutely thrilled with the money they will be paying you every month, but then the company doesn't have any career growth. So, if they haven't put actual steps to make sure that you can progress within this company, this might not work for some. It might work for people who are happy just with the level that they are, and they're not looking for that immediate progression. But if someone is really looking to progress within the next couple of years and they have a career plan, they will want to find an organization that offers them both, and they can see that those career ladders are there, that there is a clear path for them to grow. So that's why it's so important for organizations to have both, and be very transparent about both aspects during the recruitment period.
Yeah, and I'm just curious. Like I see a lot of websites of, in this case, IT consulting firms where they have some things regarding, well, these are the values of our company. This is how we make sure that our employees are treated well, that they have a lot of opportunities, a lot of responsibilities. But that's typically what I see. It's typically just static on a website.
Yeah.
So you'd be lucky if someone finds it and sees it and reads it. What are some other strategies for a company that a company can use in order to communicate this well to the market? And yeah, like even before they get to speak to those candidates directly, that they can showcase their EVP in this case, and that they can find people who are aligned with their values, with their mission, before even talking about, as you mentioned, the actual monetary parts of the contract. How can they communicate that best?
Yeah. It's basically, do you walk the talk? Are the things that you're putting on a website just the things that you put on a website, or are they actually something that it's happening in real life? So from the thing that I advise a lot of candidates to do is to look at LinkedIn, look at what the employees are saying about the company as well, because you will see a lot of those things, and how the employees are approaching the company, whether they talk about the company, what sort of things are happening there. If a company says, okay, we are really focused on growth and we want our employees to progress, does that progression actually happens? So first thing that you can do, again, as a candidate, you can look at LinkedIn, you can see the employees that are working for this company. And again, LinkedIn makes it really, really easy to just go in and say, okay, are those employees actually progressing? How long have they been with the company? Can you see a really clear trajectory for them? With the values, it's a lot of that comes out on LinkedIn too. So if somebody says, this is our value, do they actually exhibit that? Do they nominate people for that value? Are there any examples that they can provide what somebody was recognized for actually doing that? So there's a lot of things that companies can do just before it even gets to the interview stage, and it goes beyond just talking about it on the website, but ultimately during the interview, and that's when it's the right time to ask those questions. And candidates, again, they shouldn't be scared of asking the hiring manager, okay, so what do you stand for? Why is this your mission? And why do you do what you do? How do people progress here? How do people get rewarded here? Because those questions will ultimately give you a little window of opportunity to see, okay, this is how things actually look like in this company.
Yeah, and I'm genuinely wondering whether candidates are even doing this, because I've been working in IT. I was more in between the business and the actual technical developers, engineers, analysts, whatever you want to call them. The common idea is, and that is the most, well, that is happening the most common times, is that those people are, well, let's say, have less social skills than the typical person, let's say it like that, because they are very good at the thing that they do. They are very good on delivering and listening to people and delivering on time. But are those people, and then I'm talking about the actual technical, well, I don't want to call them nerds, but you know who I'm talking about. Are they actually asking these questions? And are they actually bothered about company values aligning there? Or are they just looking for a job where they can really just do the thing that they enjoy, do the thing that they are good at, and get some recognition for it?
Yeah. And so, yeah, you're right. Quite often candidates don't ask those questions. But then they join a company and a couple months down the line, they realize, oh, actually, I don't really like working here. This is not what I expected. But they haven't done the due diligence before joining to figure out basically what will the company look like on the inside. So if somebody just wants, a good compensation and they want to do a good job, then that's absolutely fine. They don't have to ask those questions because that is what they are looking for. They're looking for a good comp and they're looking for an enjoyable position. But if you really want to be part of something bigger, if you really want to make sure that the company that you work for is aligned with yourself, then you will go out of your way to find out before you join. You will go out of your way to ask the right questions. And there is so much resources out there that you can access, or there are so many people that you can speak to, mentors, coaches. There are a lot of people that people can access and ask, okay, how do I approach this? How do I make sure that I find the right role for me? How do I make sure I find the right company that's aligned with my values? But ultimately, they need to make sure that this is what they want. Because if they don't, and if they're happy with the way things are, and that's absolutely fine. But companies should be looking for people who are aligned with the mission and who are looking for the same as well. Because if you have somebody who is really driven, if you have somebody who wants to work for the company because of what they do, they will ultimately give more and they will receive more because they're so strongly connected to the wider mission, rather than just, okay, I'm here to just get a paycheck every month and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, definitely, and that makes a lot of sense. I want to look a little bit into the future, like based on your experience, based on your knowledge. what are some things that you see happening in terms of workforce planning, in terms of EVP, and some of the other topics that we talked about?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are coming through in the people world right now. One of the big ones is obviously AI. There is more and more AI powered solutions available for workplaces, and that pretty much covers the entire life cycle of employee. So from hiring all the way to offboarding, and it's a big opportunity for people to get on board and really embrace that, but also make sure that they do it ethically. Another trend that is really coming through, it's the people ops function transforming and the teams adapting product principles in the context of building the people operations. There is a really big potential for this and for the function to have less of the admin aspect, but being more commercially focused, commercially driven, and making sure that what they provide is actually of value to the end users, so to the employees for us. And another trend that actually impacts every single thing that we've talked about is the focus towards transparency. More and more companies want to make sure that they have the right fit. So they're sharing the handbooks. They really want to showcase what's working for the companies so people can make a conscious decision of, okay, this is for me, or no, this is not for me. And that's okay. It's okay to say, this is not the environment that I will thrive in. So yeah, there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, and I think that transparency is also of benefit not only to the candidate, but also in that sense also for the company, because you don't want to set false expectations. You want them to give all of to have all of the information that they need in order to make a decision. And if they 2 months in, they see, well, this is not what I expected, this is not what has been promised, you've been wasting, as a company, you've been wasting time and money as well, and opportunity cost. So in that sense, it's for both parties. It's a good thing to be transparent. So yeah, I think that is what the future will go into as well. Being more transparent, being more open, because companies are realizing that, well, hiring people is getting a big cost for them. Mm-hmm. So you want to make the right decisions every time, as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dorota. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's a bit different than the typical conversation that I had, but as I said, very relevant, as most companies are dealing with workforce planning and those types of things and finding the right people. So thank you for that, and I think we have discussed some very interesting topics.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.